Hi, 3Cs. Today we're looking at compound interest. So the last class was simple interest. Next question. And this time we're going to look if I graphed those numbers. So this is the graph of simple interest. I'm starting with $100, and each end of each year I'm making another $10. So at the end of 5 years, and for some reason my numbers aren't there, 2, 3, 4, 5, you can see that I'm at $150 now. And it just keeps adding $10 each year. And not too bad. I didn't have to work for it. But compare that to this one here. When I compare it to the compound interest one, and again I'm going to put my numbers so we can actually look at it closer. Okay, well at 5 years here I was at $150, but at 5 years here I'm actually a little bit higher. Okay, now what I'm going to do next is I'm going to put both those graphs together so we can really compare what happens over time. And here it is here. Okay, you can see that over time, eventually, not necessarily right at the beginning, they're pretty close right at the beginning, but eventually that red line is growing faster. And as time goes on, it keeps on growing faster. Okay, so it keeps on going. And this blue one just keeps going the same speed. It is $10 each time. So over time, what happens is the distance here between compound and simple interest becomes much larger. So over time, compound interest is a much better deal. Okay, now I'm going to add the words compound and simple here for you so that when you get a copy of this, you'll be able to look back at it and remember what it is. So that was the simple, and this one was the compound. Now what you're going to be doing today and tomorrow is working with both simple and compound, but again I'm focusing more on the differences between the two. Now this is the type of example you're going to be doing today. So I have a principal of $500. It earns 6.5% compounded annually. The question says complete the following table. Now, this is what the table looks like. I have the year, the principal, the interest earned, and total interest. Now what I need to do first is I need to take this percent and turn it into a decimal. Remember to do that. I divide by 100, or I move the decimal place over. When I do that, I end up with 0.065. No, you don't want to round it to 0.07. Okay, when we're talking about money, people are very conscious of a half of a percentage point. Okay? So I'm going to take this number and multiply it by my principal each time. So let's take a look at the table. Principal. Well, the first year I have $500. So that's my principal, so I'm going to put in $500. The amount of interest I earn from that principal is going to be the 500, and I'm going to multiply it by 0.065. And when I do that, and I'm just going to get my calculator out, what I ended up with is $32.50. So the total interest earned was $32.50. Now, the next year, year 2, I need to take this number and add it to my original principal. So I'm going to just put that here so that you remember that that's how we got our next principal, and we're going to add the $32.50. And you know that that's going to equal $532.50. So this time, when I calculate my total interest earned, I'm going to take my $532 and multiply it by 0.065. And this is the last one I'm going to write down like this, because otherwise I'm going to run out of room. Okay, so I take that and I'm going to multiply it, and I end up with $34.61. So I'm going to take now my total interest. I had $32.50 from before. I'm going to now add my $34.61, and we end up with then $67.11. Okay? Now continuing on here, year 3, I'm going to take my $34.61 and add it to the 532. Or you could go 500 plus that, which would probably be easier because then I wouldn't have to think. And I don't like to think, to tell you the truth sometimes. So this time I'm taking 6.5% of this number. And when I do that, I end up with $36.86. Now remember these numbers here. When we round to the nearest penny. Nearest penny. And you're thinking, well, what's a penny? Well, a million pennies is a lot of money. So I end up that now I have earned $103.97. So when I add that number to the 500, I end up with $603.97. So you can see my numbers starting to grow, not too bad. Next thing what we're going to do is we're going to take 6.5% of this number. And let's see what we end up with that. 603.97 times 0.065 equals $39.26. And this time when I add that for the total interest, you'll see that really I didn't have to work for $143.23. The money worked for me. Okay? And we could keep on going and going, and some of the questions do ask you to go a little bit further than 4 years. But you can see by looking at this interest earned column, after the first year I was only making $32.50, but at the end of the 4th year I'm getting much closer to $40. So that's really important because remember, you didn't have to work for it. The money worked for you. So what you're going to do now is you're going to do some questions in the textbook, very much like this. And tomorrow we'll do some more and maybe a little bit more graphing. So today you're doing a little bit of graphing, but I'm sure you can manage it. Good luck.